Welcome to Inheriting the Future. I'm Nate Kirk.
And I'm David Wall. We're two kids from Gaylord, Michigan, who grew up watching incredible people quietly build something worth inheriting.
Before we head off in different directions, we decided to sit down with those people and ask them everything we wish we'd asked sooner.
Because we believe the greatest gift one generation can give the next isn't money or property, it's wisdom.
And we're here to make sure it doesn't get lost.
Today's guest is someone who's spent his life working with students and athletes all across both high school and the collegiate levels. With close to 40 years of teaching and nearly just as many coaching, he's left his mark on thousands of student athletes, myself included.
Yeah, so Rich Moffit is the Dean of Students, social studies teacher, and varsity men's basketball coach at St. Mary Cathedral School in Gaylord. Before coming to St. Mary, he spent time across the Michigan educational landscape, including over 23 years at Crawford Ensemble Schools and Northwood University. His coaching resume is remarkable. Holland Area Coach of the Year, Lake Michigan Conference Coach of the Year, Northeast Michigan Conference Coach of the Year, Traverse City Record Eagle Dream Team Coach, and multiple AP and Detroit Free Press Class B recognitions, among many others.
Yeah, so he holds a Bachelor's of Science in Social Studies Education and a Master's in Educational Leadership and Administration, both from Central Michigan University. He's been a member of the Basketball Coaches Association of Michigan, also known as BCAM, for decades, and nearly every single one of his teams has earned Team Academic All-State honors. And in 2014, he was honored with the BCAM Distinguished Service Award.
And if all that weren't enough, his father was a legendary football coach himself who went 180-93 over 32 years, won 9 conference championships, and is a member of the Football Coaches Hall of Fame. Leadership, it seems, runs in the family.
Rich, welcome to Inheriting the Future, and thanks for joining us.
Hey, it's great honor for me to be here with you guys, and looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, so most people put their job title and company on their LinkedIn profile and call it a day that way. Yours reads lifelong learner, educator, difference maker, and a myriad of other things, so on and so forth. Why is it important to you to describe yourself by values and roles rather than a title?
I think your character and what you do, in my mind, is your identification as opposed to your title. I think a lot of people like slinging their title around, and my thing, and I learned this from my dad, is I want to be a difference maker. My dad was a difference maker. I didn't really realize how much of a difference maker he was until he passed away about 11, 12 years ago. And I had so many people reach out to me, and people I never even heard of reach out to me and talk about how much of a difference he made in their lives. And, I'm going by a saying that I learned from Coach Rietma, who's a popular Michigan coach, college coach. It's go mad and go make a difference every day. And so I'm a go mad disciple, love it. And I think it's going to play a major role in my life.
Yeah, so you graduated from Corunna High School where your dad, like you said, was the football coach. What was it like growing up the coach's kid, and how did that shape the kind of educator and coach you eventually became?
It was, as I look back at it, it was an incredible experience. Gave me an insight, one, on how hard you got to work as an educator and as a coach. David, when I went into college, my game plan was to go into pre-med. And I think like a lot of people are going to college, they kind of have to find their way. And I think I knew after a short period of time that pre-med was not for me. And as I sit there and went through careers, I kept going back to teaching and coaching. And, I learned an awful lot from my parents. My mom also worked in the educational system as a Title I teaching aide. And, learned so much from them, and I saw the difference that they made. And at the end of the day, that's what I wanted to do. And so I had the opportunity to go that route, and I've had the opportunity to work with some unbelievable students and student athletes all over the state.
Yeah, so you spent more than 23 years at Grayling before coming to St. Mary. That is a long time to invest in one place. So, what did those years teach you about what it actually takes to build something lasting inside of a school?
It was tough at first because you go in from the basketball mindset. You have to sit there and build a foundation of skills, and that started with the little guys. We had a little kids program, but I think once we got a roll, and it was very rewarding to see that. Other aspects, not just basketball, but it was great to see our students come back into very productive adults. I mean, it was great. One of the biggest things I love is going into town. I'll go to some of the local establishments. People come up to me, kind of touch base, talk about what they're doing, and I just love it. I love it. I went down to Grand Rapids to watch one of our St. Mary's players play in an AAU tournament, and in between games, I had lunch with one of my former All-Staters, and so I love doing that. I love seeing my ex-students like you, okay, become very successful. And for me, that's very rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've obviously worked in bigger schools, smaller schools, different communities across Michigan. Do you think that small town students and athletes have an advantage, a disadvantage, or is it more complicated than that?
I'll tell you what, there's some obstacles. There's no doubt. There's some obstacles coming from a small school. But I think when you sit there and look at that, as far as like success, it doesn't matter whether you're from a big school or a small school. I think it matters what is your mindset. Do you have a fixed mindset or do you have a growth mindset? And I'm big. You two know, because I talk about it all the time in class. I'm a big supporter of the growth mindset. Karen Zwick came up with that many years ago. And quite simply, embracing challenges, persistence when bad times come, fighting through it, giving effort and growing from mistakes. I mean, a lot of people sit there and they make mistakes and that is done. They are done. And I think if a student has a growth mindset, they use these obstacles or maybe mistakes they make or these roadblocks and they learn from it. And not only do they learn from it, they take what they learn and they come back and the next time that obstacle is there, they thrive because they learn how to get through it. And I believe so much in growth mindset. And so you talk about big schools, small schools, there's probably something as far as athletically, as far as competition you play. But I think this growth mindset and having a fixed mindset, I think those are the keys. If you have a growth mindset, that opens doors. Doesn't matter whether you're from a small school or from a big school. You have that growth mindset, you can accomplish a lot of great things.
Yeah, for sure. And in helping students grow for decades now, what do you think young people most misunderstand about their own potential?
I think going back to the fixed mindset, growth mindset, I think a lot of students will sit there and they fail. And then they're like, well, I'm just not smart enough, or I'm just not quick enough, or I can't jump as high. And it's done. They quit. And when things get rocky, they might fight for a little bit and they quit. And I think if you have a growth mindset where you fight through, whatever your weakness is, you try to improve your weakness. And, here's one for you guys: feedback, constructive criticism. A lot of people get criticism and they're attacking me. No. I think you have to sit there. It has to be a mindset that when someone is critical of you and gives you feedback, hey, instead of sitting there saying they're attacking me, listen to what they're saying. How can you improve? And taking that information and going out and improving. And I think that's the big key.
Yeah, and obviously that translates across the court in the classroom. And I think we said that nearly every single one of your teams has earned team academic all-state honors. And in a world where athletics and academics are even more and more being treated as competing priorities, how do you make sure that they aren't?
I'm a big believer in this. Going back to what we just talked about with a fixed mindset, growth mindset. Hey, if you're going to work hard on the athletic field, whatever the sport may be, and that's what you're about, then you should do the same thing in the classroom. If you're going to compete in the athletic field, okay, to win in the classroom, same thing. I mean, you two, I mean, I don't know if you remember this, or we play educational games like Family Feud, and I'd read out trivia questions, and you guys would compete against each other. And I don't know if this is an appropriate word, but you guys were savages. I mean, you guys competed so hard. And I'm sitting back and I'm just laughing because I look at it this way. You guys are hooked. And I'm watching you guys compete. You know what I mean? Like compete in the classroom. And I have a hard time with some student athletes if they only work hard in sports, but not in the classroom. And at the end of the day, you know, they may be successful for a period of time. It's not sustained success from what I've seen. You know, I think the two go hand in hand. And I think, hey, if you're going to work hard in one, you got to work hard in the other in order to be successful. A big believer in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in just talking about helping students grow and helping them achieve whatever's possible, you've obviously had a great achievement when from 2009 to 2018, you directed the BCAM MHSAA Reaching Higher Showcase, one of the largest events sponsored by a state athletic association in the entire country. What did working at that level with elite athletes from across the state teach you about leadership and character that you brought back into your own life?
You know, I was a small part. I mean, I directed, but I was also part of a fantastic team. I think anytime you're part of a team, you let guys, you know, do what they do best. And, you know, for example, we had a program in which we kind of gave parents some straight talk about what college athletics were like. And had a guy by the name of Dave Ginsburg came in, and a guy by the name of Mark Comstock, and they laid on the line. And it was fantastic because these parents need to hear it. Guys on the court, you know, just coming up with different drills to, you know, sit there and evaluate players, selecting the best players. And so it was fun. It was a really good experience for me to be part of that. Also work with the MHSA. And, you know, again, Nate and David, you know, I sit there and go back, but I saw some kids. You guys talk about attitudes. I saw some kids are unbelievably talented, but they didn't have as many offers as maybe a kid that maybe wasn't as talented, but had a great attitude and was a team player and in the right mindset. And, you know, college coaches, hey, they see those things. And they want players on their team that are going to sit there and embrace challenges and, you know, grow. So that was cool to watch also.
Yeah, so whether it be in small St. Mary's, 70 students in the class, or at obviously the state level, you've seen students and athletes at their best and at their worst. So in your opinion, in your experience, what's the most common turning point where a kid finally gets it? Like where something clicks and you see that progress making happen in real time?
You know, I think it's, you know, you're talking about in the classroom and also athletically is when I see those things that we just talked about happen without me having to coach it. When I see on the court, for example, a kid that spent a lot of game or time looking at game film, looking at ways to improve, and then he's doing all that extra stuff in the weight room or on the court. I think in the classroom, I just had a letter today, blew my mind apart. I had a student that I've been working with that's been struggling academically, and she wrote me a letter and she said, Mr. Moffit, and I'll paraphrase a little bit. She said, thank you for being hard on me. She said, you don't let me slip one bit. I have to turn in all my homework to you. And this is a kid, I'm going to tell you right now, if you look at her other classes, you know, she's struggling. And she went on to say, you believe in me and I appreciate it. And it brought tears to my eyes. It kind of put a little swag in my step today, David. And I love to hear those types of things. And so it's not always like everybody's like, oh, it's the ace, you know, your 4.0 students or 4.34 students. I love getting the feedback from maybe students that are struggling too, that kind of get it. And you hope that they get it, take what they learned in my class and, you know, do the same thing in other classes.
Yeah. And obviously, you've mentored students in both the classroom and on the basketball court for so many years now. What has changed the most about, I guess, students in general over the years, and what hasn't changed at all?
I think kids are kids. I think our students, I've seen some changes. I think this thing right here, and I'm holding up a phone, social media's played a role with it. I look at that in one of two ways. I think social media has been detrimental to some students because I see students, and talk about student athletes, that get so wrapped up in what other people think, kind of like the theory looking glass south, that they look at how other people think of them, and that's how they think of themselves, and they lose confidence. So I think, once again, holding up my cell phone here and social media, sometimes that can be bad. But at the same time, I look at social media, depending on what you follow and what you bring into your brain, it can be a great thing with social media. If you follow, for example, someone who's very positive, you follow Christian people, like in our case, in our situation, and you hear positive notes. I listen to Christian music, and I listen to all kinds of Christian music, which and I love all kinds. And it took me about 7-8 years ago. I had to stop what I was listening to, and I was actually listening to the words. I'm like, this is bad. Why am I listening to this? And I started listening to For King and Country, all these great singers out there that are Christian singers. And man, it just, inside your brain, what it feeds you, it's great. It's great. I don't know. Do you remember, Nate, when I played the group Skillet?
Oh, yep.
In class. And I remember because, and there are some students, not necessarily me, that are like hard rockers.
Mm-hmm.
And I made that say, I go, this is a Christian group. And you're like, no way. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And
I was shocked. I thought it was like death metal. It was, it was funny.
Oh, yeah. And then, once again, hey, what you feed your brain plays a big role. And I see, once again, David and Nate, I think sometimes if you can use the social media as a positive, but you can't sit there and look at it as a negative. You can't latch on to negative stuff and expect it not to affect who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. I think that just kind of reflects back to your whole concept of that, like just making sure your mindset's in the right place, because if you're just feeding all this negative stuff, obviously that's going to be how you think. That's going to be how you think about yourself, how you walk around, talk about the world. But what's one thing that you wish parents who potentially didn't grow up with, well, most likely didn't grow up with like social media and the internet in the sense that we have today, what do you wish that parents understood about the pressure that students face today? And what's probably the hardest thing about being a student athlete that parents often forget in the years since they've strapped up on the court?
That's a great question. And I can answer with one simple word: expectations. I think expectations in the classroom, expectations on the field. I think, sitting there looking at this question, I think parents have unreal expectations of what athletics and academics bring. For example, I think for many parents, the number one goal is for their kid to play in college. Let me tell you something. I've had all three of my kids play college athletes, and they will tell you it's a grind. It's not all glory. It's sometimes kind of ugly. And I think parents have this mindset of like, oh, I need to get them to that next level and this and that. And I think the expectations are just enormous on these kids. And then you look at kids that have these expectations, and let's say they struggle a little bit or they get hurt, and then how they feel about themselves or how they're contributing to the team is not where it should be. And, I think, expectations, well, it definitely plays a role in answering that.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously you spent many years taking these kids of these families and helping transition them into adulthood. What do you think is the hardest part of pouring your heart and soul into these young people who eventually go off to do things and leave your life?
I think the hardest part for me from this, where I'm at right now in my career, is like watching some of my former students and that, is when you see them maybe have some of these obstacles in life and have it tear them down. Um, and I just, I pray that, they get through tough times. Some of the students I've had, and also student athletes that I've had. And, once again, I told you, one of my greatest joys in life is seeing others succeed. My ex-students and, ex-student athletes, I love watching them succeed and having great lives and great careers, and so forth. And I struggle, when they do leave and when hard times hit, that maybe it takes them a while to get back up on their feet.
Yep, and Nate and I are obviously both one of those young people. We've sat in your classrooms, walked those halls, and finally reached graduation here in a week or so. And I know there are definitely moments where I wasn't 100% sure what I was capable of or even where I was headed, but the culture you've worked to build at St. Mary's, this expectation that you show up, you do the work, you're accountable to something bigger than yourself. I can't even count the number of times I've heard in huddles after practice and team meetings, whatever, just something bigger than yourself, this humility. And that doesn't just exist somewhere, it has to be built. So obviously people like you construct it day after day, year after year, and I hope to carry it with me everywhere I go. So before we go any further, I just wanted to say thank you for that, for what you gave me, what you give every single student who's came through those stories.
Well, I'll tell you, both of you, it's been an experience of a lifetime for me to go back in the classroom. This is year 39, and previous 5 years I was at the college level, and to come back in the high school and teach, your class is the best class I've ever taught by far. Not even, and I've had some great classes, but man, I'll tell you what, when I came in that classroom, the neat thing about you is that you guys challenged each other and you challenged me to be better. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I got to admit, your class probably led the nation. When I asked the question, how'd you do on the test? Oh, I did terrible. I flunked it. And I'd feel bad as a teacher. Then I'd go and grade your test. You guys all got A's, or A minuses. But, on a serious note, man, it has been an experience of a lifetime. And I wanted to change a thing.
Yeah, seriously, it's been such an honor to be under you as a student, and obviously to be a student here for me personally about 8 years now. It's honestly kind of surreal to leave these hallways for today. But when you look at the halls of St. Mary, like today specifically, what do you see that makes you hopeful about the next generation?
I think the legacy that your group has left and those before you have left. St. Mary students are special. They're blue collar kids, great attitudes. Faith plays a huge role. And I think, you look at St. Mary's and David and Nate, I'll tell you what, I remember going to the first play and I'm watching you two and the roles you have, and I am just blown away that, you guys are doing all these other things and you're also in the play. It was unbelievable. David would lead roles. Nate, I forgot the role where you were a rapper.
Oh, yes. That was Descendants.
What play was that? I'm just,
yeah.
And just the skill set that you develop coming from a small school. If you're at a big school, you wouldn't have had that opportunity. Maybe not as many opportunities as what you do as a school like St. Mary's. And man, that was so cool to see you guys go through those experiences and how you've grown since the 3 years I've been there. Unbelievable.
So after decades of shaping other people's futures, not in awards, not in wins or losses, but in character, what do you hope your legacy is?
I hope people look at me as a person in the classroom and also as a coach, as someone who gave them lifetime skills that are going to make an impact in their lives forever. Whether that be something as simple as work ethic, teamwork, learning from mistakes, having that growth mindset, which I feel like I preach without calling it growth mindset every day. That's my goal. That's my goal. And, hopefully, I'm a small part of the journey, but hopefully I contributed to that where, all my students are successful.
Yeah, that's amazing. And before we let you go, we end every single episode with the same question.
So you've spent your entire career investing in young people at exactly the right moment when it matters the most. In classrooms, on the sidelines, in the hallway, and even in those hard conversations that nobody else wanted to have. You've given decades to the belief that young people rise when adults show up to them.
So with all of that said, what's one thing we could do to wake up to a better world tomorrow?
That's a great question. I think, talking about a better world, I think understanding that the Bible's the truth, that our faith is the truth, and not looking at, when you look at success, I mean, let's be honest with you. If you look at social media, they're going to give you 1,000 different versions of lives that are better than yours, right? And I think understanding that what you have is a gift as a person, a gift from God, and to use that gift in going forward and being a difference maker in other people's lives. I mean, let's be honest with each other. I mean, I love it when people give back. I'm going to bring somebody up here, and hopefully I'm not extending this too much, but you look at our custodian in our school, Mr. Mike. I love how, I mean, he's the OG. I mean, you look at him, and he's a guy that these little kids, I go into classrooms, this and that. He goes in there, Mr. Mike. They love him. And he has such a great attitude, as you both know. And he lifts people up. And I love him to death. I love what he does. And, if I want to give something that would make our place a better world, hey, everybody having the concept of go mad. Go mad. Go make a difference. Be a strong, take those Christian values out there, and let's be difference makers in the lives of others.
That is everything we could have asked for. So Rich Moffit, everyone, someone who has spent his career building people who go on to build communities. Thank you for what you do every single day, and thank you for being here with us.
Guys, it's been a pleasure.
And thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. And I'm looking forward to watching both of you. Challenges are out there. Let's go get it, right?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
If this conversation moved you today, please share it with someone in your community, a neighbor, a parent, a young person trying to figure out where they belong. These stories deserve to be heard. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Inheriting the Future Podcast and wherever you listen to your favorite shows. We are Inheriting the Future, and we'll see you next time.
Wow.